Hi, welcome to Nichi Day of Giving. My name is Nancy Ukai, and I'm chair of the Nichi Foundation Board. We on the board are dedicated to telling your stories, Japanese American stories, and preserving our Nikkei history for future generations. We are all about empowering, connecting, and informing our community. By donating to the Nichi Day of Giving at whatever level is comfortable for you, you're helping us to continue our media work. And you're showing support for the community building we do through our cultural and educational programming. We appreciate your support because without you, we cannot do this important work. Thanks to generous matching foundations from the Craig Foundation and the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund, we hope to raise funds that will help us enrich existing programs, such as our third pilgrimage next month to the Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Farm Colony. Also, we will be launching new initiatives, such as a new Japanese language section in the Nichi News, starting with the August 31st issue. 2 new websites for the Nichi News and Nichi Foundation. New episodes from the Nichi Cafe, a monthly live stream program that spotlights community news. The Nichi Cafe is funded by a generous grant from the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation. We plan to create an archive of films of remembrance movies that can be viewed 24/7 all year round. So thank you for your support and happy end of the summer. And now I'll turn this over to Yuki Nishimura, our Nichi board member and MC for this year's Day of Giving. Thank you, Yuki.
Thanks, Nancy, and hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Yuki Nishimura, and I am a board member of the Nichi Foundation, and I welcome you to our 7th annual Nichi Day of Giving. As noted at the beginning of the program, we dedicate today's program in memory of longtime community journalist Martha Nakagawa, who, among the many publications she wrote for, contributed articles to the Nichi family of newspapers. Sadly, she lost a short bout with cancer on July 28th at the young age of 56. At this year's Day of Giving, we invite you to join our family of members so you can receive the leading Japanese American community newspaper in the country and keep connected, informed, and by using our exclusive content empowered throughout the year. Nichi Day of Giving donors will be eligible to receive some great thank you gifts. For those who contribute $100 and over, you will receive a 1-year digital edition of the Nichi News. For those who contribute $250 to $499, will receive 1 year of our digital edition, as well as a special Nichi tote. Those who contribute $500 to $999 will receive a 1-year premium membership consisting of our print and digital editions, a tote bag, and a bucket hat. And those of you who contribute $1,000 or more can receive a 2-year premium membership, or 1 year for yourself and 1 year to give as a gift to somebody else, as well as a tote bag and bucket hat. And as a special treat for all donors today, regardless of the amount, you will receive a copy of our most ambitious and most popular publication to date, Nikkei Connections, a Japanese American Community Resource Guide. All Nichi Day of Giving donors will also be eligible for Day of Giving drawings for books, posters, and more. And we will be also giving away 6 1-year subscriptions to Masterclass, a $180 value, and 3 raffles throughout the next 2 hours. So make sure you stay tuned. Donate today to be eligible for these great gifts. It's our way of thanking you for your support. We have a full schedule today featuring stories from our Nichi Cafe, summary of programs that support Nichi, as well as some new faces that have come on board this past year since the last Day of Giving. Stay tuned for some special announcements regarding the Nichi News and the Nichi Foundation that we are grateful to share. Without further ado, let's start the program.
To honor the spirit and legacy of the late educator, historian, longtime Nichi Bay contributing writer, and our founding board member, the Nichi Bay Foundation established the Wayne Maeda Educational Fund to help support educational programs within the community. These include our Authors Series events, our annual Films of Remembrance event, our pilgrimage to the Angel Island Immigration Station, and the Wakamatsu Tea and Soap Farm Colony. He was the founding board member of the Nichi Bay Foundation, but some 40 years earlier, he was a founding faculty member of the California State University Sacramento Ethnic Studies program, one of the very first such programs in the nation. A dedicated scholar, he curated the landmark 1992 Sacramento History Museum exhibit, Continuing Traditions, Japanese Americans, Story of a People, 1869 to 1992, which included my family's story. He also authored the book Changing Dreams and Treasured Memories, a story of Japanese Americans in the Sacramento region. He was also a board member of the California State University Sacramento Japanese American Archival Collection, the National Japanese American Historical Society, Jankenpo Gakko, which I was a part of as a young boy growing up in Sacramento, and the Wakamatsu Gold Hill Colony Foundation. Wayne Maeda was the longest-serving Nichi Bay Times/weekly contributing writer, writing dozens of book reviews for over 17 years. Sadly, he lost his battle with cancer on February 27, 2013, at the age of 65, with his wife, Lori Tuhi Maeda, also passing away from cancer only 3 days later. Please help continue Wayne Maeda's legacy of educating the community and the public about Japanese American experience by supporting this fund today.
The Nichi Bay Foundation takes great pride in its K.W. Lee Reporting Fund. This fund honors the legendary investigative reporter K.W. Lee, whose journalism helped exonerate a Korean immigrant accused of a crime that he did not commit. The fund also allows the Nichi Bay to support additional in-depth writing and reporting by journalists who, thanks to this fund, are able to bring important stories to the Nichi Bay readership. The fund was launched with a generous $9,000 donation made by Asian American Studies professor Glenn Omatsu of California State University, Northridge. Glenn is an advocate of the ethnic press and once worked for San Francisco's Hokubei Mainichi newspaper. Kyung-won Lee, known as KW, is a significant figure in American journalism. He was the first Asian American hired by a mainstream U.S. newspaper, an activist who challenged racism, and a chronicler of the lives of Asian Americans who emigrated to the U.S. in the early 20th century. Lee was born in 1928 in Kaesong, North Korea. He came to the United States in 1950 to study journalism at West Virginia University. He earned a master's degree from the University of Illinois in 1955. Soon after, he became the first Asian immigrant hired by a mainstream daily newspaper, covering stories such as black lung disease suffered by coal miners in the Appalachian Mountains and the civil rights movement in the U.S. South for the Kingsport Times and News in Tennessee and the Charleston Gazette in West Virginia. But perhaps his best-known journalistic work occurred while Lee was a reporter in California at the Sacramento Union in the 1970s. A series of investigative reports into the incarceration of Chol-Soo Lee, a Korean immigrant who was wrongly convicted in 1973 for a murder in San Francisco's Chinatown, led to the first national Pan-Asian movement. Lee's reports resulted in the retrial and acquittal of Chol-Soo Lee in 1983. Often referred to as the godfather of Asian American journalism, Lee went on to establish Koreatown Weekly, the first national English-language Korean American publication and the English edition of the Korea Times in Los Angeles. He is the founding president of the Korean American Journalists Association and in 2000 was inducted into the Journalism History Gallery in the Museum in Washington, D.C. Lee's writings inspired a younger generation of Japanese American and Asian American activists. This includes the late San Francisco public defender Jeff Adachi, who said, KW had a knack for telling people what they didn't always want to hear, but needed to hear. He used to say, "Get off your ass and organize."
I don't think I would have become a public defender but for my involvement in the Chol Soo Lee movement and K.W. Lee's writing, which sparked it, Adachi said in a story published in the Nichi Bay Weekly in 2019.
We'll show some of the best of this past year of the Nichi Bay Cafe, starting with a special report on the 80th memorial of the James Wakasa, where our team went out to Utah to report on this piece of Japanese American history. A report on Ireicho, a sacred book containing the names of more than 125,000 imprisoned persons of Japanese ancestry during the war. The Ireicho is the first part of the Irei National Monument for World War II Japanese American incarceration, a project meant to combat the erasure of those incarcerated during World War II. But first, we hear from Elaine Donlin of the Japanese American Religious Foundation.
I am so grateful to Nichi Bay Foundation. They serve such an important role within the Japantown community. I'd say the role is twofold. One is Nichi Bay keeps us connected, keeps the community connected, keeps us informed of what's going on within the community through the newspaper, through sponsoring events. And secondly, Nichi Bay Foundation plays an important part as partners in the community. We just had the atomic bomb commemoration, and Nichi Bay Foundation played such an instrumental role in coordinating, implementing, and just executing such a beautiful, powerful ceremony. I can't imagine Nichi Bay Foundation not being a part and partner in the Japantown community.
A set of solemn and respectful ceremonies permeated through the central Utah breeze April 22nd, underneath dotted clouds over the former Topaz concentration camp and the Topaz Museum in Delta, Utah. The peaceful ceremonies served as a contrast to the sudden and violent death of Japanese immigrant James Hatsuaki Wakasa, who was shot and killed near the fence of the former prison camp while walking his dog 80 years ago. And while remnants of bitter feelings regarding the manner in which a memorial stone was dug up in 2021 remain, for one weekend, peace and collaboration to remember the death was a charge of the day, as the Topaz Museum Board and Wakasa Memorial Committee collaborated on a series of events to mark the historic occasion. Yet the quandary remains: what will the museum ultimately do with the memorial stone? Some 2,000 people attended the memorial service for Wakasa in the camp in 1943. A memorial stone was erected by Wakasa's friends, but then ordered destroyed by government officials. All that remained of Wakasa's existence were a photo of the service and memories by camp survivors. But then a detailed map of the memorial's potential location was discovered by researcher Nancy Ukai at the National Archives in Washington, D.C. in 2015.
But I knew that it was important because it was so detailed. It was down to the inch, and there were drawings of sagebrush and floodlights, and of course the blood spot, and it was marked the guard tower. And so I put it away, but and didn't use it until 2020, when there were protests for Black Lives Matter, and I thought, let's write a story about this monument that wasn't allowed to exist, that was erased, that was demolished. And I put the map in thinking that it was demolished.
Ukai wrote an article on the 50 Objects website that she manages.
And I put the map in thinking that it was demolished, not knowing that archaeologists would take that diagram and with their 100-yard tape find it.
But it turned out that instead of destroying the memorial, it was buried in the desert. After Ukai's discovery, Jeff Burton and Mary Farrell, Two vacationing archaeologists in the middle of the COVID pandemic in 2020 discovered the large stone that the administration had ordered destroyed, buried in the desert. The controversy surrounded the Delta, Utah-based museum's excavation of the thought-to-be lost memorial to Wakasa, an Issei senior who was shot and killed by a guard in the Topaz, Central Utah concentration camp on April 11, 1943. After the archaeologists published their findings on the Japanese American National Museum's Discover Nikkei website with detailed information on the stone's location, the Topaz Museum Board had the stone dug up on July 27, 2021 and transported to the museum. Same people could have tracked down the monument and vandalized it. The excavation, however, was conducted without any Japanese Americans or archaeologists present, and the removal was conducted by a contractor hired to clear trash from a separate part of the former concentration camp, leading to outrage from descendants. Repeated apologies, however, could not prevent shouting matches at community meetings called by the Topaz Museum Board in the Bay Area, where a number of activists formed the Wakasa Memorial Committee. The longtime head of the Topaz Museum, Jane Beckwith, would leave her position, and a new group formed to mediate the discussion with a focus on preserving the Wakasa Memorial Stone. The Wakasa Memorial Committee called for mediation over the issue, and the National Park Service and Utah State Historic Preservation Office stepped in with former Utah State Senator Janie Iwamoto. A new committee, referred to as the 333 Committee due to its equal representation of the Topaz Museum Board, the Wakasa Memorial Committee, and other neutral parties, was formed. And while the controversy at times seemed bitter, including letters back and forth in the Japanese American press, the group that formed seemed to have a quick resolve.
But it really felt like a good mix of all the parties, so everyone had a place that they could communicate their concerns, their issues, and very quickly, like even the first meeting, we all reached consensus on the central issue. All groups care about the story of James Wakasa, and all groups cared about adequately preserving the stone itself and the site. And so I'm like, from that, all the commentary dissipated, right? We were all joined together on the common goal.
According to Merritt, the group has been meeting every 2 to 3 weeks over an 8-month span.
And so for 8 months we've been meeting, and it's been very much a collegial, collaborative communication, which I felt has been really powerful.
There was also praise for the Topaz Museum leadership for having the foresight to purchase almost all of the former concentration camp land and for being stewards of the site through the museum.
It's been a great gem here, in the state. Our state has recognized the Topaz Museum and Topaz and always supported it.
Jane is a fixture. She is a fire plug that made everything happen in Delta because she does have those deep roots in the community, which is always so important when you're working in a rural community, is you need to have that local buy-in or else it's never going to really get traction. And so Jane has been that steady hand, that measured force for decades. And I cannot say enough nice things about Jane and the work she's done. Because I think without her role early on in the 80s, we would have lost large chunks of Topaz, and we wouldn't have the museum today without her passion and drive. Now that being said, she's also got a big coalition of people that support, and folks that view the museum as just an outreach of their story. And so I think that there's been a great collaborative from the 80s of building a group of stakeholders that are going to move the mission.
Both Merritt and John Lambert, the masonry expert hired by the Topaz Museum to help preserve the stone, said the excavation of the stone was not ideal. However, they indicated that it could have been worse.
Archaeologists, it wasn't done the way we would do it. But for the parties that were involved in its removal, they were fairly careful. They were doing fairly decent work, but they're just not trained archaeologists. And so, obviously, I would have loved to have done more controlled work because I think we could have answered more questions. But I also don't think that it's all been destroyed either.
How did you?
Anytime you move a stone that's 4.5 feet long, 2 feet high, 2.5 feet wide, that only the top 2 to 4 inches are visible, and you try to unearth that and you don't know exactly what its sizes and dimensions and characteristics are, it's extraordinarily challenging. I'm just grateful that it was done. It's now in a secure place. It's safe from vandalism, and it's safe from the elements. It's no longer having to bear all the trauma that the stone bears from the environmental and atmospheric forces that act upon it. And so it's in a great spot now, and that's what's most important to me.
Lambert says he feels strongly that the stone should be housed indoors rather than outdoors.
If there's some way that it could be protected from all the perils that I've described, perhaps, but I'm saying that I feel that it ought to be in an interior environment where we know that it's going to be safe. Topaz is a remote place. You know, it's hard to keep an eye on it.
Merritt agrees in theory.
End goal of the community is to preserve the stone for perpetuity. Outside is the worst possible thing for us to do to that stone, whether it's in the museum courtyard or back at the site.
On April 22, 2023, the events brought a sense of healing to those who attended in honor of the legacy of Wakasa, an Issei bachelor with no known family. At the original site, there were rituals by both Japanese Americans and Native American spiritual leaders, and the placing of paper flowers on a makeshift shrine. Later, back at the Topaz Museum in the nearby town of Delta, Utah, attendees had the opportunity to physically touch the stone.
That memorial service where we could touch the stone was it was both sad and I don't know, like you know, reality touching back into the past, to be able to touch something that had been built in memory of his death at that time. It's a very special moment.
Saying is that the unresolved issues of Topaz reverberated through the generations, and many people will call that generational trauma. And this weekend is a way of addressing that with people, with descendants who were not present in Topaz, but emotionally felt the weight of it, the injustice of Haas's death. But it is also about coming together as a community, speaking with our fellow Topaz families.
While various factions in the community, who only months ago seemed to be a gulf apart, came together in remarkable unity to remember the killing of Wakasa, the elephant in the room remains: the actual future of the memorial stone. Tamaki Dion suggests that it should not be moved out of state.
Been suggestion that perhaps the stone would move out of Utah, for example, and I don't feel that's appropriate, because I believe that the stone belongs to the site, belongs to the history of Topaz. It strikes me a little bit like I visited the British Museum at one time and was astounded at the collection of Egyptian art and Assyrian art. It was fantastic, but I don't think Egyptian art really belongs in Britain. You know, it is a similar.
Masako Takahashi of the Wakasa Memorial Committee, a former Topaz incarceree, suggested that the National Park Service take over stewardship of the former Topaz concentration camp site. She said, quote, "They could build a visitor center surrounding the site of Wakasa's murder, where the memorial stone could be returned and preserved, to be properly remembered, to educate, and be honored in the very place he was senselessly killed out walking his dog," end quote.
I love that idea. I feel like it would only enrich the storytelling and would really make a case for having the monument there at the site. An interpretive center in many ways is different from a museum that's removed from the site. So I could see pilgrimage there, more people engaged in learning about it. So yeah, I think that would be that is a great idea, and hope that NPS will consider that.
As frank discussion surfaces, Ina sees hope for the future.
I feel like this being able to have this ceremony by being respectful of the differences. I don't know that the two groups will ever, come together and agree on how to narrate the existence or the removal of the stone. But I always feel like conversation, however opposing positions people have, at least we're not burying things anymore. We are surfacing things, and there are always going to be difference of opinions. So I think there's work to be done. I think this has been in many ways, a very healing experience. It has brought people together from Topaz, from the Bay Area, to remember and really to honor this life that was ended unnecessarily.
The public unveiling of and the procession for the Irecho took place on September 24th, 2022 at the Japanese American National Museum before it opened to the public the next day. The Irecho is a sacred book containing the names of over 125,000 imprisoned persons of Japanese ancestry during the war. The book is the first part of the Irei, National Monument for the World War II Japanese American Incarceration, a project meant to combat the erasure of those incarcerated during World War II.
I think our effort to try to do this project of making sure nobody's left out and also not misspelled or inaccuracies of a names list, I think was important in the sense that back in World War II, a whole community, was targeted and then rounded up and put in these and kind of excised from the American landscape in a way that was a little bit different than how German nationals and Italian nationals also were picked up, but treated as individuals. Each person given a parole hearing. So the difference was we had little babies and infirm grandmothers and U.S. citizens, and it didn't matter as long as you had a drop of Japanese blood, you were kind of taken out from 9066.
According to Williams, the names of many incarcerated people were not documented accurately. He and a team of researchers made an effort to record every name in the Irecho without spelling errors. The massive book contains the first comprehensive list of every person who was imprisoned in the camps, from the oldest camper admitted to the last baby born before the sites closed. As the book sits on display at the Japanese American Museum, the public will be asked to use a hanko, a special Japanese stamp, to mark next to one of the names as a way to honor those imprisoned. During the September 24th ceremony, dozens of formerly incarcerated people and loved ones of the incarcerated marched in formation out of the Go for Broke National Education Center and into the Japanese American National Museum. Multiple marchers held up fence panels, each donning the name of one of the 75 American incarceration camps that imprisoned Japanese Americans during World War II. Each panel was attached to a small container of soil from each site. Along with representatives from each camp who traveled from all around the U.S., multiple faith leaders and cultural leaders showed up in the spirit of allyship to celebrate the project. Buddhist monks chanted as each representative witnessed the book and placed their panels in a long row, memorializing each camp. Some of the oldest living camp survivors were present and bore witness to the book, as well as stamped next to their own names. Many representatives and their loved ones held photos of their family members and friends who had passed. Viewers shed silent tears as they beheld the thousands of names etched into the monument. Community elders were the first invited to mark the book with the hanko, followed by all of the older representatives present prior to public access.
Racial karma in America that we need to attend to and repair and heal, and that these fractures in our nation's past need us collectively to do something. It can't just be one group or one, and we need everybody to participate in acknowledging and honoring this history. And we do this, in this case, by honoring names, of giving individuals that were kind of merged together as this kind of amorphous threat to national security, and they weren't given their personhoods. And I think the idea of giving their names prominence in this way is a way to repair that history.
Hello, my name is Wes Nihei. I'm membership coordinator of the Nichi Bay. Thank you for supporting the Nichi Bay Foundation, and welcome to the first raffle, Day of Giving raffle. I'm going to draw 6 names from our Nichi Bay raffle shaker. But before I do that, here are the prizes. A Go for Broke CD by Anthony Brown, music CD by Anthony Brown. The Art of Tofu by Kasha Richmond. It's a cookbook of vegetarian recipes, all featuring tofu. A book by Arthur Hura with Derek Kurisu and Jason Takamura, and it's called From Cao to Cuisine, an Island Cookbook, Then and Now. Another book by Arthur Hura, it's called Cao, Cuisine and Culture in the Hawaiian Islands, about the history of plate lunch. Masterclass memberships for 1 year, online courses featuring celebrity teachers, and a striking poster donated by Robert Matsumoto commemorating the 10 concentration camps for Japanese Americans during World War II. So now I'll select 6 names from the Nichi Bay raffle shaker. Here we go. The first raffle prize winner is Carolyn Lowe from North Bend, Washington. The second winner, don't look down. The second winner, John and Eileen Nishida from Sacramento. The next winner, Warren and Rosie Shimonishi from San Jose. Winner or winners number 4 coming up. A blank. One more shake. Winner number 4 is Marion Uchida from Sacramento. Congratulations, Marion. Winner number 5, Keiko Wright from San Rafael. And the final winner from this raffle is Mike Namba, Sacramento. Congratulations, Mike.
All right, thank you so much, Wes, and congratulations to all the winners. Now we will take a look at how Nichi-Bay covers the local news of our community, namely newsmakers. One of the segments of our community often overlooked is our LGBTQ+ members. Our contributing writer and videographer, Akira Olivia Kumamoto, covered the first ever queer Obon in Los Angeles' Little Tokyo this year. Following that, Nichi-Bay contributor Gil Asakawa interviews singer-songwriter Kina Grannis, who not only serenaded the audience as Grand Marshal of this year's Cherry Blossom Festival Grand Parade, but also brought awareness to her mother's illness. Hear from Donald Moriguchi of the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund, which contributed $25,000 to today's Nichi-Bay Day of Giving campaign.
Hello, my name is Donald Moriguchi, Secretary for the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund. This fund was created by my late brother, Eni Moriguchi, in honor of our parents. Discussed for many years, he was finally able to complete his mission prior to succumbing to illness almost 3 years ago. Eddie was a certified public accountant in Japantown for, I'm guessing, well over 50 years. He worked in and was supported by the people and organizations of the community and devoted his leadership and expertise extensively to serve them for many years, even after retiring. Eddie wanted to preserve our unique history and culture for the generations of Japanese Americans and to the new arrivals from Japan. He hoped to do what he could to help provide funding to those organizations that help to communicate and inform and provide resources to them. He shared with me fears that the demise of older large family donors would reduce support and always encourage others to preserve support to our community organizations. The Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund was created to provide continuing funding to the organizations that support the Japanese community in all cities that serve our family members, and also funding for higher education to members in our family. Our support extends to organizations in Los Angeles, Hawaii, San Jose, and San Francisco. Our yearly support goes to the Nichi-Bay Foundation because it is one of the remaining organizations that remains to communicate, educate, and provide resource information to our community, and hope our participation will help them to serve the future generations of Japanese and Japanese Americans. Eddie's daughter, Edith Horner, is our family foundation's CEO and will be the one to help carry on Eddie's vision into the future. I want to thank the Nichi-Bay Foundation and Kenji Haguma for his leadership and his board to continue their mission, and to encourage all supporters to assist with continued financial contributions to them to keep the voice of the community alive. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.
On June 19, 2023, Okairi, an advocacy group for LGBTQ plus Nikkei, held their first queer Obon at the Terasaki Budokan in Little Tokyo. An Obon is an annual Buddhist event for commemorating one's ancestors, whose spirits are believed to temporarily return to this world in order to visit their loved ones. The queer Obon was created as a safe space for the LGBTQ plus community to celebrate their loved ones who have passed on.
Queer Obon came out of a desire to want to create just a space where we could have the queer and trans Nikkei community come out and feel like we could just celebrate with each other and not sort of be bogged down by like these feelings of being unwelcome. Some people had said that they've been to Obons in the past and felt excluded in some way.
Okairi was founded in 2014 when a group of LGBTQ plus Nikkei, parents and allies of queer Japanese Americans, organized Okairi, a Nikkei LGBTQ plus gathering, the first ever conference focused on queer and trans Nikkei. The event was a major success, and the conference continued yearly, with hundreds of people in attendance. The goal of Okairi is to create visibility, compassionate spaces, and transformation for LGBTQ plus Nikkei and their families by sharing their stories and providing culturally rooted support, education, community building, and advocacy. The Queer Obon is their most recent project meant to create safe, inclusive spaces for the queer and trans Nikkei community.
I think our community felt that there wasn't a space where the queer and trans people could show up in all of who they were and just feel comfortable to celebrate our queer and trans ancestors as well as their own ancestors, but do it very authentically. You know, they can dress how they want, they can just feel comfortable bringing their partner, and if they want to hold hands. This was a space that was created to really bring our community together to celebrate our ancestors.
The evening included a Buddhist service of remembrance, taiko drum performances, and odori dancing. Various food vendors including milk and tea and eize were present as well. One of the highlights of the evening was a Japanese folk dance performed by Gia Gunn, a former contestant on RuPaul's Drag Race.
I think for many generations, many LGBT folks didn't feel very welcome at their temples or at their local obons. That's not to say everyone, but I know that a lot, not me personally, because I was very fortunate to have family support and I grew up in the church, so I've always felt very welcome. But what I've taken in from others is this is a unique opportunity for members of the LGBT to be able to have an open, extended invite that is just for us. And I think nowadays we need things that are just for us because there's so much that is not. So this is a unique time and opportunity for us to be able to come together as a community and celebrate Obon.
The event also featured various LGBTQ plus community organizations, arts and crafts, and an altar where attendants could honor their passed away loved ones with a written message, flowers, and incense. The uniquely LGBTQ plus Nikkei space was a testament to how much adversity the Japanese American community has overcome.
Whenever I go to events, the thing I'm most looking forward to is just seeing people that come to a space where they can be themselves, you know, that they don't have to worry about how they dress or how they act or, you know, what they say, that they can just be themselves. And I think many in our LGBTQ community don't think that they're worthy and loved. And so we want a space where they know they are, that they're beautiful, that they're worthy of being loved, and they can do that as authentic individuals.
quiet to the park where it first started. Cold night, us lying in the dark. I felt my heart was trying to find a place for you to stay, a place where I'd feel safe. Anything we have known, anything we've forgotten, in the rain, in the dark we'll lay, in your arms I'll stay. Anything we have known, anything we've forgotten, in the rain, in the dark we'll lay, in your arms I'll stay.
Well, Kina, thanks so much for being here. My name is Gil Asakawa. I'm a special correspondent for the Nichi Bay News and Nichi Bay Cafe, and I'm here with singer-songwriter Kina Grenis. And yeah, it's so cool to have you here.
It's so
And
great to be here.
yeah.
Hajime
Hi, hajime. But thank you so much for taking the time.
Of course.
I wanted to talk to you about your music, and yeah, I first noticed you back after you got the Super Bowl Super Bowl
Back in the
award.
day, yeah.
Yeah, and I live in Denver, so I don't get to see AAPI or Japanese American performers like in Little Tokyo or in Japantown. We have what we call Tiny Tokyo. It's one block of
Aww.
Japanese American
The
culture.
littlest Tokyo.
The littlest Tokyo, yes. Maybe that's nicer than Tiny Tokyo. But I follow the progress of Asian American and especially Japanese American artists in pop culture, American pop culture, and you've had a really interesting career because you've kind of come to your success kind of in through the side door, by doing YouTube videos, winning this competition for the Super Bowl, and then all of a sudden you appear. Like I was watching Crazy Rich Asians,
Yeah.
and I said, "Wait, that's Kina Wait, that's Kina Granis." And I saw you on screen. I'm like, "Wait, that's Kina Granis." So tell me a little bit about your decision. So you were on Interscope Records. So you were on a quote unquote major label. I was a music writer for many years, so I understand how that industry works and how labels will charge you for every little thing, like if you go on tour. But what led to your decision, even at the start, even when you were in school, to kind of be an independent artist? You forged a very independent path.
Well, it all kind of happened very naturally. Like when we go back in time, I graduated college in 2007. And back then, everyone still kind of had the mentality that you had to be discovered in order to do what you love. And at the time, it kind of did seem like you were either starving artists busking on the street for all of eternity, or you're like a huge successful musician, and that was kind of it felt like. So throughout school I was gigging all the time and making my albums, but there was kind of this thought that, well, I guess the next step is that I have to be discovered and sign with a major label, because it seemed like the only sustainable path. And then, once I found myself on a major label, it became really clear that it was not for me. And I was so fortunate to have found YouTube before that moment. So grateful for that, because I had started not long after graduating college and started uploading videos, not really thinking much would come of it. I was in that contest, and a commitment I made. I'm going to put up a video every single day as a reminder and thank you to people who are voting for me. And throughout that contest, I noticed the view count started to go up. I'm like, who are these people and where are they coming from? And luckily, by the time I won, and by the time I was signed, I knew that I had a community of people around the world that wanted me to make the music that I truly felt like making, and they had been so supportive and so loving, and I felt so connected to them. And it really helped me make the decision when I was faced with, okay, do I want to be on a major label and do it their way? Or do I just want to keep doing what we've been doing and finding my own path? It made it so much easier to fall back on that. And with the label too, again, there can be great people in the label system. It can work well. In my case, it was kind of like I came there going, I have an entire album made. I'm ready to record it. And their approach was, well, we kind of think you should be like this. And so we want you to write a whole new album with a bunch of writers that we trust. And I was like, I tried a couple co-writes, and for me, it's like the most uncomfortable, awkward thing. Music has always been so private and sacred to me. So for someone with a bunch of social anxiety to be in a room with a stranger and then have to like craft a hit was not something I enjoyed or was good at all. So it made it super clear, okay, that's not right for me. I see a path where there are people wanting to support and wanting to listen. And then I just kind of kept figuring it out as I went. So I guess that's kind of how it began.
You are going to be what, Grand Marshal of a parade, right?
Yeah.
How's that? Have you done that before?
Oh, no, I've never been Grand Marshal. I know a little bit about it because one of my best friends, Maria Digby, was actually the Grand Marshal at the last Cherry Blossom Festival in San Francisco, and I've heard wonderful things from her. I know there's some sitting and some waving involved, but I feel very honored to kind of have that position, and I'm mostly just so grateful um, to be embraced by the community and have another opportunity to talk about, blood cancers and signing up for the bone marrow donor registry and things like that, and to have had them kind of go like, we can help amplify this message, and we'd love to kind of partner with you. And that has just been incredible. I'm really grateful.
Yeah. Being a Grand Marshal, and learning how to wave your hand, like a beauty pageant, contestant. How did they reach out to you? How did you become the Grand Marshal of this parade?
Yeah. So, okay, first I'm going to insert a random fact before I forget, which is that my mom, after she grew up on Oahu, and then when she was in middle school, I think she and her mother and sister moved to the Bay Area. And when my mom was, I don't remember what age, I have the date somewhere, her mother forced her to be in like the cherry blossom pageant. And my mom is not a beauty pageant type person. She's like, doesn't like people to look at her and is super silly and not serious at all. But she was in the like San Francisco cherry blossom pageant years ago. So when I told my mom that I was going to be part of this, she just bursted out into laughter. She's like, I can't believe this. I have to tell your aunt. Oh my gosh. So my grandmother has a very unconventional Japanese name that we called her. We called her Obaba-sama growing up, which is like, oh, mighty grandmother essentially. But she was like, oh my gosh, Obaba-sama would have like loved this so much because it was her city and it was a thing they were involved in. And my aunt she did like ballet at one of the festivals too. So really cool for my family to be involved in. But how I got involved in the festival to begin with, I guess it was maybe like 6 months ago at this point that my mom's doctors told us, what we are recommending is that she needs to have a blood stem cell transplant as soon as possible while she is still strong. That is her best chance. And that was kind of this huge wake-up call for my family and I. We were like, okay, well, if that's her best chance, then we need to make sure that she has a chance. And they started looking, and at this point my mom in the entire global registry has no match. And that was like this huge fire lit under us. And I feel so grateful that I have any online presence at all, because I have this opportunity to spread the message and get the word out. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about it, but Asians are underrepresented in the registry. And so for people like my mom who need a transplant to save their life, they just sometimes can't find them. And it's so frustrating when, you know, if you could just get every Asian person, every Japanese person to just swab their cheek, that my mom and hundreds and eventually thousands more people would be saved because of a simple act like that. And so we've just been thinking about this these past months, like, how do we spread this message? How do we let people know how easy it is to potentially save someone's life? And we've been doing all this work online to spread the word. And one of my best friends, Mari, I was catching up with her one day and she said, you know, I've just been thinking so much about you and your mom. And she's also half Japanese. And she was like, I want to help. I want to do more. And I don't know how I can. And then she's like, you know, I was Grand Marshal at the Cherry Blossom Festival some years ago, and they were so wonderful. And I wonder if there's any way that they could help. And she put me on an email with somebody from the board there. And I guess perhaps from multiple angles, I think they had said, you know, we're aware of Kina and someone else had brought her to our attention, and we would love to help her get this message out. And so that was kind of the beginning of it, was through Marie and through maybe Kenji and Nichibei and some people saying, we know of this person and she needs help, and can we help? And everybody was on board. And so it felt like this perfect fit where, you know, the Japanese community could come together. We can celebrate, we can get more of our community to get in the registry, and that will help my mom. It will help other Japanese people. And it just felt like a really perfect fit.
I'm so glad that you have this vehicle to help your mom and to help others. And, you know, I'm sure we all send our best wishes to your mom.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. And I hope it works out, and that more people sign up and that you find a donor. So, yeah. So, Kina, thank you so much for joining us and spending this much time with us. And love your music, love your message, love, you know, the work that you do in the community, and what you're doing for Asian Americans as a whole and for Japanese Americans. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I appreciate it so much. It's been lovely talking to you, and I'm very grateful that you guys are helping and getting this message out too. So
yeah,
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Help Kina and her mother, as well as countless others, by registering to be a donor with Be the Match, which is a community of donors, volunteers, healthcare professionals, and researchers who deliver cures by helping patients get the life-saving marrow transplant they need. Register at bethematch.org.
Hello, thank you for supporting the Nichi Bay Foundation. My name is Wes Nihei, Membership Coordinator of the Nichi Bay, and welcome to raffle number 2 of Nichi Bay's Day of Giving. I'm going to be selecting 6 lucky winners who will win one of these prizes. Win each of these prizes. First, we have a Go for Broke CD featuring the music of Anthony Brown with the Japanese American Orchestra, the Japanese American Jazz Orchestra, and the San Jose Taiko Dojo. A book by Arthur Hura, Cow Cow, Culture and Cuisine of the Hawaiian Islands. Another book by Arthur Hura. This one is From Cow Cow to Cuisine, an Island Cookbook, Then and Now. A cookbook, The Art of tofu featuring vegetarian recipes from around the world. And this is by Akasha Richmond. A striking poster by Robert Matsumoto commemorating the 10 World War II Japanese American internment camps. And finally, masterclass memberships for 1 year. These are online courses taught by various celebrities. And here we go, the Nichi Bay raffle shaker. Our first winner, Ken and Susan Kawaichi of Piedmont. Winner number 2, Reiko True of El Cerrito. Thank you for supporting the Nichi Bay. Winner number 3, Robert and Norma Ito of Sacramento. Winner number 4, Bill Watanabe of Los Angeles. Winner number 5, Jeffrey Asai of Milpitas. And winner number 6, let's mix it up, Jerry Takahashi of Oakland. Congratulations, Jerry.
Thanks again, Wes, and congratulations again to all the winners. Next, we will feature a couple of Nichi Bay Cafe segments looking at community-based organizations, many of whom have been celebrating anniversaries. Our Nichi Bay Cafe team traveled to Sacramento to explore the 50-year-old ACC Senior Services, as well as My Sister's House and its store, My Sister's House Treasures. But first, we hear from Craig Harmer from the Craig Foundation, which contributed a $50,000 matching donation to today's campaign.
Nichi Bay Weekly writer Tomo Hirai and I traveled to Sacramento, California to find out more about a nonprofit protecting and empowering victims of domestic abuse called My Sister's House. We caught up with Yen Marshall, Executive Director of My Sister's House, at My Sister's Cafe in the old Japantown area and current Capitol Mall area. Incorporated in 2001, Yen explains the mission of My Sister's House organization.
Our mission is to support survivors of domestic violence, sex trafficking, human trafficking, sexual assault. But we are culturally appropriate safe haven for our clients. In this area, if you're talking about service for shelter for such a big, diverse group, I think, and culturally appropriate one, we are the only one that has shelter. We are the and enterprises where we can provide training for our clients. So we have up to, probably our staff can speak up to 15 different Asian languages. However, we don't close our door to any group. So our door is open to any group who comes to seek help. The challenges that our clients face, and first of all, the language barrier is huge when you're trying to look for a job, right? And then the second thing is that most of our clients, they have been depending on the abuser at home. So if they have not worked, it could be very intimidating. And then, you know, some of our clients might not know even how to drive. So access to transportation is also, you know, a gap that we're trying to close. So when our client first started, you know, going to a job location like this location, the other location, is nearby public transportation. So we're teaching our clients how to take public transportation. And then, so language barrier, access to transportation, and then, you know, the ability of actually working there and don't feel intimidated, because the relationship has always, you know, when someone is in an abusive relationship, their self-worth, self-esteem is low. And so by putting them into a workplace where we respectfully, you know, working with them and then showing them how they should be treated, you know, as a worker, as a manager, as, you know, someone who's contributing back, they deserve the respect, and they cannot, you know, be treated the way they have been treated at home.
My Sister's House provides opportunities for victims to gain self-respect and enter the workforce, as Enterprise Manager Marta Pena Lane points out.
With the Enterprise program, there's a cafe on Capitol that's been there for 8 years, and we just started a year ago. And it's a woman to work program, so it gives our ladies the job experience that they need to really branch off into doing a better position for themselves and for their family. So we train them not just on retail skills or restaurant skills, but then we get into budgeting, we get into goal planning, and really management skills for these ladies. And a lot of them have never had a job. So this is a great opportunity for them to hone their English skills, to hone in either retail skills or the restaurant skills. And this is only one facet of what My Sister House really provides for the community.
The cafe started about 8 years ago. We know that you know, being in a domestic abuse relationship, one thing that the abuser has control over the victims, it has a lot to do with financial independence. So we know, the board at the time, which I was serving on the board at the time, that there's a need for us to provide a training ground for our clients. And so as part of our Women to Work program,
We interview one of the cafe workers who points out the help that My Sister's House has given her.
Me ha ayudado muchísimo desde que llegué aquí hasta el instante. Sentí un apoyo incondicional. La organización te toma como si fuese tu propia familia. Nos apoya en todo. Hace aproximadamente llegar a My Sister House un año y ya tengo mi lugar, mi apartamento.
Not more than 5 minutes from My Sister's Cafe, Toma and I visited My Sister's Treasures, where Marta Pena Lane gives us some background and shopping tips of My Sister's House treasures.
I had a little bit of skepticism when they approached me about the store opening up, with it only being Asian used items. I thought, is there going to be enough, you know, for an entire year or 10 years or 5 years? And Nilda looked at me and she said, you don't have to worry. There'll be plenty. And, you know, it's going on a year now, a little over a year, and we still get donations every single day.
The presence of My Sister's House treasures in Sacramento's relocated Japantown has led to some revitalization of interest of the once thriving ethnic enclave, as the organization has engaged local businesses and the Asian American community by hosting several events over the past year.
Tell you what, our kimonos go very, very fast. Our kimonos go very fast, and we had a lot of really exquisite artwork, and that really goes fast, and it's really popular. And for the gentlemen, the Hawaiian shirts. We have a lot of Hawaiian shirts, and the men really love to come in and pick up their Hawaiian shirts from us.
We finish up with Yen Marshall giving direction for the future of My Sister's House.
Hoping to branch into the educational side where we can provide educational classes or support so that young, from even elementary school students and up know how to interact with each other, what's happening at home should not be the norm if they come from an abusive relationship where the kids grow up seeing mom getting beat up or not having respected. So we want to teach the relation, a positive image for the kids, to know that what's happening at home is not the normal way of how you should be treating each other. When you're dating, when you're a teenager, your date needs to be treating you with respect, and you have the right to say no, and a variety of way in countering the, what they're seeing at home. And that's what I think would be the next step for our organization to grow. I think it's really important to provide a service for the whole cycle.
Nichi Bay Foundation is proud to support the mission of My Sister's House by donating part of the proceeds of the Nichi Bay Night with the Sacramento Kings. This is Greg Gloria for Tomo Hirai for the Nichi Bay Cafe. As part of our Genki Aging series, our goal is to empower the fastest growing segments of the Japanese American community, its seniors. We hope to accomplish this by bringing awareness to our community of local senior services. In this segment, Nichi Bay Weekly writer Tomo Hirai and I traveled to Sacramento, California to visit ACC Senior Services, celebrating their 50th anniversary this year. Tomo Hirai sat down with Jin Shiomoto, interim CEO and chair of the board of ACC Senior Services.
Well, 50 years ago, we were incorporated, and then we built our nursing home that opened on donated land from a big developer here in Sacramento. That was huge. And then as we've expanded our programs, continued to serve the seniors, we offered adult daycare. We've expanded into assisted living memory care, and then expanded our rides program, where we serve seniors and they're able to get to doctor's appointments, medical appointments, dialysis.
Jean Shiomoto shares some of the changes she has seen during her involvement at ACC through the pandemic to today.
It's expanded. We went from skilled nursing to assisted living, and that's been a huge progress for us. And we've expanded services to the seniors. We offer a lot of online programs because during the pandemic we had to pivot because we weren't doing anything in person. So we've developed this great online program to keep seniors active and not isolated, and they've really been drawn to that.
Keeping up with the needs of seniors in today's world requires adapting programs and services. Tomo talks with Jerry Shikuma, administrator for ACC home and community-based programs, on the breadth of their programs.
We have a variety of programs. We have a rides transportation program that offers free transportation to seniors and their caregivers to do, so that they can do things like get out to the doctors, go to grocery shopping, or to congregate meal sites, or just any kind of personal errands. We have a caregiver support program that offers caregiver support to family caregivers. So people, it could be taking care of either a family member or maybe a friend or even just a neighbor, but someone in their circle that they're helping to support. We have a lifelong learning and wellness program, and that helps seniors to get out and get active and healthy, get connected with others in the community through classes and presentations, workshops, things like that. We have a senior employment program, and that's a program that helps low-income seniors with some barriers to employment get job training so they can re-enter the workforce. We have a utility assistance program that helps not only seniors but people with low English proficiency learn about their utility bills and how to bring down the costs.
With ACC's history of standing up for the underrepresented Asian groups, ACC's Danny Lee talks about the newly formed senior escort program during the wake of current increasing Asian violence against the senior population.
The only program that I've gotten to sort of see to fruition is the senior escort program. And so I started here as an intern actually, and that was my project. And so they were just starting to work with several different organizations in the area that you're probably familiar with, like the JACL, the Asian Buddhist Association, the Paratransit Inc., Doris Matsui's office, let's see, the Sacramento Police Department, a lot of different organizations. So I would say that's where it started. So it included a lot of collaboration from community partners in the area. And it actually started from one volunteer from the ABA coming to us and saying, we need to do something about this. And I think ACC is an organization that can really help us see it and create something from it. So after lots of collaborative meetings, what we did was sort of do a survey in the area of people who are seniors and who are in the population that we were directly wanting to serve. So definitely the Asian American seniors, especially in this area. And so what we found is that a lot of times, especially with our population, and as I'm sure you guys have seen as well, there's not a lot of people that are reaching out and asking for help, or they don't feel comfortable asking for help. There's sort of a stigma that everything's okay, I don't want to bother you, things like that. So I think it can be sort of difficult to find programming in exactly what people are looking for or need in the community. And so it's sort of a trial and error, but we really wanted to address a need even if we're not hearing people ask for it. With the anti-Asian hate violence and incidences, there's data that it rose exponentially over the last year or so. And that's without the possibility that there's a lot of people who didn't report too. And so it's sort of the same thing around here. We might not get reports, we might not get people asking for it, but we did a soft launch of the program and had a lot of our collaborative members reach out to volunteers and sort of just that old-fashioned grassroots effort of getting people to help. And so we had people that volunteered to go on walks with seniors who wanted to go out but didn't feel quite as comfortable without a volunteer. And then so slowly it just sort of picked up momentum and we got more participants, more volunteers, and so we're finding more seniors that really could benefit from it.
In addition to their nursing, critical care, and independent living facilities, ACC has opened up Maple Tree Village, an assisted living and memory care facility.
It's a 99-unit assisted living. We have 30 units of that is memory care, and then 69 is assisted living. So we opened January 2020. And then the pandemic hit in March, pretty much things started shutting down, and so the timing wasn't the best, but we had completed the building, we were planning, we did an appreciation event, and then we were going to plan a grand opening, and then we couldn't do that. So we had moved in, probably about maybe 20 residents had moved in, and it just stayed like that because we couldn't accept any new people because of what the public health had put out. So we just kind of stayed at that for almost a year, and so now we've opened up. We're doing marketing to try to get our census back up because it stayed pretty steady because we couldn't accept new residents.
Emerging out of the pandemic has not been easy. Like many organizations, ACC has been challenged to figure out how to reestablish services prior to the pandemic. Both Jean and Jerry share their thoughts on ACC's challenges.
Staffing our facilities has been a big challenge since the pandemic, where people were not wanting to work in the service anymore, and then it's the salaries, so it's being competitive. So we have to be competitive with a minimum wage, and so we had to be cognizant of that. And then it's so competitive in the other service industries that our challenge still is having enough staff and the wages that we've continue to have to be competitive. We have to increase wages. That's pretty much the biggest challenge we have right now.
But we are doing, I have to say, we're doing this without our volunteers. So for a long time during the phase of the pandemic, we didn't have any volunteers because our volunteers, again, were also in the high-risk category because many of them are retirees, they're older. And so while in the pre-pandemic area, we had lots of volunteer drivers that helped to provide rides. After the pandemic started, it really fell on the staff to take on all the extra responsibilities. And we are just now, actually this month, welcoming back some of our volunteers who feel comfortable again to be out and about and be, interacting with a lot of different people.
Despite the challenges, Jean points to a positive and fruitful future for ACC.
The staff here work hard. They're very connected to the community. The volunteers here volunteer. They give a lot of their time and they give back to the community. And we're seeing that with our 50th anniversary. We're having our gala. We have over 200 people participating, and it's a big year for us, but it's just where this community really comes together. So really that's what ACC is about, it's family.
Family indeed. This is Greg Valoria for Tomo Hirai for the Nichi Cafe.
Next, we will feature some of the individuals of the community that caught our eye at Nichi Cafe, including a real newsmaker, ABC 7 News producer, Lindsay Nakano, and a former Nichi intern and staff and current columnist, Jeff Asai, a Yonsei and Buddhist priest living in Japan and providing a perspective of contrast between the United States and Japan. And speaking of younger people in the community, next, we'll have our summer intern, Alicia Chang, speak about our internship fund.
Right before the holidays, Nichibei news writer Tomo Hirai and I sat down with Lindsay Nakano, 5 p.m. news producer at KGO7 TV in San Francisco. Lindsay shares how her mom helped catalyze her career direction.
My mom was a news producer at Channel 5 back in the day, and that I think is a little bit of what sparked my interest in local news. I was in the newsroom, when I was really little, during a mass breaking news story in the Channel 5 newsroom, and to see that adrenaline and everybody kick into gear. It was the 101 California shooting. And then going to college and trying to figure out a career path, communications and journalism, local media was interesting to me. And so I sort of just casually started pursuing that. Out of college, I interned in Sacramento at KOVR and KMAX. And so I learned how to work in a newsroom. I was an intern, I was a PA. From there, my first job out of Davis was in Salinas, which was very, very interesting. It's market like 113, 120. It's a little market where basically the staff and resources are so limited that you learn to do everything. From Salinas, I got my break to come back home. There was a financial show at Channel 4 at Cron, and they were doing news cut-ins. So my job when I started at Cron was to produce 2-minute news cut-ins during this financial newscast. About 5 years, I felt like I was ready to grow some more. And some of the limitations of Cron is that they weren't affiliated with one of the big networks, and as an independent station, so the resources were a lot more limited. So I went across the street to Channel 2 at KTVU, which is just sort of a local Bay Area institution. And there were people there that had been at KTVU for years and years and years, and it was a huge growing opportunity for me to, have feedback and critiques and, I went from feeling like the big fish in the little pond to the little fish in the big pond. And then about a year ago, I left KTVU and I joined KGO. And a lot of that was a management decision. I started at KTVU when they were owned by Cox Media Group, and within 5 years of me being there, they were sold to Fox. They had always been a Fox affiliate, but they were sold so that they were owned and operated by Fox. And I worked there during the time of the Trump administration, which is a very interesting time to work for a Fox-owned station. So especially during a lot of the pandemic and the Asian hate crime stuff, I felt like the company's response was not where I wanted it to be. And that was sort of a launching point for me overall in terms of the company's response in many other areas, George Floyd, etc. And so my frustration with the company launched me to look for other job opportunities, which was what ultimately landed me at Channel 7.
Give Sandy a heads up about the A5.
We asked Lindsay who were her heroes and mentors that she looked up to in her area of work.
I think in a lot of ways, probably my mom. But I don't think I would ever tell her that to her face. To recognize where we are in this place and time where there is space for journalists of all backgrounds and races and ethnicities. It's crazy to think that that was not that way, even a few decades ago. And so to understand what the previous generation accomplished in terms of being main anchors and producers and news directors of stations in a market like San Francisco is a pretty incredible task. And then, it's sort of because it's something that I grew up with, you sort of think it's not a big deal, and then you realize that the rest of the country wasn't like that. It's been an honor to be exposed to people in my field that have really, broken the glass ceiling.
Lindsay talks about how it is important to advocate news of interest in ethnic communities like San Francisco Japantown.
Ethnic communities are really important. I think it's what makes the Bay Area so unique, right? And I think that it's not, obviously me being Yonsei has a lot to do with it. That would be ridiculous to not factor that in. But I also think, J-Town warrants it. It's that special. It's one of 3, one of 4 in the entire country. It is a unique community that we have here. I think that, our San Francisco Chinatown and Oakland Chinatown are important as well. But I think that they have ambassadors in, the media industry that are able to advocate for stories in that sector. And I just, want to do my part in making sure that J-Town and JA community, stories of importance also are in mainstream media.
Lindsay talks about reconnecting with the Japanese American community and her roots, and the importance of future generations in helping sustain communities like San Francisco Japantown.
I think it's really evolved. In the beginning, it was sort of this, just, I'm here, I'm raised, around it. I grew up in J Basketball League. I had to go to church twice a month because that was the requirement. And I think it was sort of something that was taken for granted. Well, especially because I grew up in the East Bay, right? So you came to J-Town, I had to wait for my mom to do JCC meetings at the center. So we just hung out in the gym. We had to come to J-Town for, go to the Sanrio store and buy gum. And I think that evolved into middle school and becoming more involved in the center and some of the programs that they have. So I did Shinzen, which was incredible experience. I went to Japan for the very first time. Then coming back and doing Cherry Blossom. I was in the Cherry Blossom court in 2006, maybe, I think. And so that sort of reintroduced me to the JA community in a different aspect, and being able to be an ambassador of the community in that way. And that was sort of a responsibility that I hadn't really had before, being on the court and meeting girls, in Seattle and Hawaii and LA, and trying to figure out your JA-ness from the Bay Area and how that set you apart from other ladies in other parts of the country was interesting. And then more recently, I've been involved. I'm on the Japantown Foundation, and so re-engaging in Japantown and being able to give back and make sure that it's sustainable for the future, and that's sort of something that I've just begun doing in sort of my new chapter and relationship with Japantown. Japanese Americans now and in the future and future generations definitely have an important role to play. There's huge responsibility. It's not only passing down, all of the lessons of our history and culture. It is also maintaining our community heartbeats like Japantown, supporting our local businesses, and then also evolving them so that they don't fall behind on the times and sort of we have to reinvent them or it's helping some of those mom and pops along so that they don't go extinct, I think. And then, there's a social responsibility in terms of making sure that the lessons learned from internment stay alive, and that the stories of internment stay alive, and making sure that there is more support for that to be more widespread knowledge. I think we do a good job of making sure that people in our community are aware of the past transgressions of the U.S. government. But I think that there are a lot of people, and I think it's one of those things that I forget because we're Bay Area, we're West Coast, we all take for granted that we know. And when you take a step back and you realize that the people in the middle of the country, like East Coast, South, have absolutely no idea that this happened to us and to our relatives. So it is making sure that those lessons are alive and passed down, and that there's that awareness.
Literally, a Yonsei newsmaker. This is Greg Voria for Tomohirai for the Nichi Bay Cafe.
Jeff, you used to be an intern and staff member of the Nichi Bay Times, and then you left in the summer of 2006 to teach in the JET program. Why did you enter into that program, and what were your impressions of it looking back?
Oh, okay. So let's see. I had originally gone to JET just to learn Japanese because I had studied Japanese in college, but I still couldn't speak it at that point. So I felt that I needed a year or two in Japan to actually get the language down. It took a lot longer than that. But yeah, the JET program was a good program. It gives a lot of support to people. And so, there's a good network of other JETs that are there to help you. And, they help you get set up in Japan.
Unlike most JET assistant language teachers, you never came back. Did you ever imagine that you would still be there?
Yeah, that's mostly my wife's fault. The reason I stayed in Japan was because of her, and also taking over the temple is because her father is the head minister of the temple. So, yeah, if it weren't for her, I don't think I would be living in Japan. My wife has a sister, an older sister, and her older sister is married. So with my brother-in-law, we sat down and we had a talk, and one of us had to take over the temple because the temples are usually kept in the family. And so, it was between him or me. And so we kind of, sat down and said, well, okay, who's going to take over the temple? And he said, well, I'm the older person, so, it's really my responsibility, and, I'm Japanese as well, so probably it'd be difficult for an American to do this job. And so he said, I will do it, but, I don't really want to, so if you would like to, you can do it if you like. And, it just seemed to make sense to me for me to do it because he was in the middle of his career. He had kids, and all of that would have to be uprooted, and he'd have to move and all that stuff. And for me, like, I was at the end of my JET contract, which was it's up to 5 years, and so I didn't have much going on. For one, I didn't have any kids at the time, and so I had a history of going to the San Jose Buddhist church. But what it came down to was that he didn't want to do it, and you don't really want a Buddhist minister that doesn't want to be there, right?
Sure.
It's not like Best Buy or something. We're not selling TVs or anything like that. So
on the topic of cultural similarities and differences, can you tell us a little bit about the experience between Buddhist temples in Japan versus the average Buddhist temple here in terms of practice?
Yeah, there are actually a lot of differences between the American temples and the Japanese temples. Um, when I tell people in Japan about American temples and how like everyone comes to church on Sunday and we have a service and all that stuff, their initial reaction is like, "Oh, it's like Christianity," because everybody goes to church on Sunday. And I thought, yeah, I guess now that you say it like that, it does feel like that. I think the interesting thing about Buddhism is that it changes based on the country it's in. So in a, in the case of America, everybody comes to the temple on Sunday, probably because other religions are also doing that for one, and also because it's about the community, and I think particularly like keeping the Japanese American community together. Whereas in Japan, there's none of that at all. So in Japan, what had happened was there was what's called the Danka system, and it was enacted, I think, around the Edo period. And what it is that they were trying to stamp out Christianity, and so all of the people in the neighborhood had to register with the temple, and then the temple would, vouch that that person was a Buddhist and they belong to my temple and they're not Christian, so it's okay. And so it gave the temples a lot of power over the people in the area. But from that point on, the local people and the temple were always connected. And so now today, we don't have Sunday services or anything like that. But I go to the people's house to give Buddhist chants and that kind of thing. But everybody, like almost everybody in maybe a 1 kilometer radius of my house, like belongs to my temple. So, and they have their graves at the temple and all of that stuff too.
Could you describe what your daily temple life is like?
Yeah, okay. So usually I wake up and then I go to the temple and then I do a short service by myself. And after that, I go to the Dankasan, the parishioners' houses, and I'll give the okyo, or I'll do the chanting, and then we'll have tea and maybe talk a little bit, and then I'll go to a different house, and I'll go to maybe 3 or 4 houses each day, and that's pretty much it. That's all I do, other than like special events like memorial services or funerals. So during memorial services, I'll go to the person's house and then chant and talk. So I mean, I guess that's basically what I do. I think there's a lot of related things that I do, like I have to clean the temple and stuff like that, and also I have to practice writing calligraphy, because that's kind of an important part of our job as well, that sometimes we have to write the deceased person's name like on a wooden slat. And so writing that is pretty difficult because you're writing on wood using ink, and so it smears very easily. So and you can't just erase it because it's wood. So that requires quite a bit of practice.
And additionally, maybe you could speak a little bit about differences and similarities in holiday celebrations, like maybe Christmas, or I know Valentine's Day is really popular in Japan as well.
Yeah, so New Year's in Japan is a special holiday. It's, I often tell people that New Year's in Japan is like Christmas in America. New Year's in America is like Christmas in Japan. So what I mean by that is that on the New Year's, it's a very important day, and the family all gathers around together. There's a special TV show called the Kohaku Utagasen, and it's a singing show where they have all the major celebrities and all the major singers. They all gather together on a stage, and it's 4 or 5 hours long. and that show goes on up until midnight. And people go to the temple and they ring the bell. Our temple has a very large bell outside, and so people have to ring that. You're supposed to ring it 108 times. And so people also visit shrines as well. They do Hatsumode. And so I think, the atmosphere is a lot different. So not only is New Year's Day, but the day after, and like even the day after that, most people have work off, and so everybody's like relaxing and just spending time with their family and eating osechi ryori and things like that.
How did it feel to have a Japanese face but not totally grasp the language at first? And did you ever face any difficulties or even discrimination due to being non-native?
Yeah, well, I think I was very fortunate compared to other foreigners that come to Japan, because having or looking Japanese is pretty useful, because I think a lot of my friends that look foreign, they get stared at and sometimes followed in stores and stuff like that. I remember sometimes we'd go out to eat, and they speak Japanese better than I did, and the waiter would always look at me, and I'd be like, I don't know what he,
Sure.
Ask him. I think one of the disadvantages though was like when I would, like I'd go to the bank or something, and people would just assume that I was Japanese, and so they'd start talking really fast.
Right.
And I think if I looked more foreign, then they would think, oh, maybe this guy doesn't speak Japanese. I'll speak slow and stuff like that. So I mean, that was kind of a problem. I did get stopped by the police a lot.
Really?
Maybe it's because I just.
What did you do?
Yeah, I just have a very fishy look, I guess.
An arrestable face.
Yeah, I think it's because I look Japanese, but I don't really act Japanese. So like when I'm waiting for somebody, like I'm usually like looking around because I don't want to get stabbed. And I think that's very unusual. I think most Japanese people would just like be looking at their phones or staring at the ground or something. I don't know. So
Even in Japan, you remain very engaged in American life, voting from afar in U.S. elections, attending a Black Lives Matter rally in Osaka after the killing of George Floyd, and reading 40 books last year. Why is all of this important to you?
Yeah, it's very important. I think living abroad, it gives you a lot of perspective on America as a country, and you realize just how powerful America is. America is obviously the most powerful when it comes to the economy, the military, and politically as well. And you really get a sense of that when you are abroad. Like when you watch the news here in Japan, they often cover the American elections and major events that happen in America, because U.S. foreign policy affects every country in the world. And so I think it's very important for us to take our civic duties very seriously, because the vote that we have, it's something that people all over the world would they would treasure that, and we show other countries the values that we cherish, and one of those would be that we we cherish equality, and we want our neighbors to have the same rights and freedoms that we have. Yeah, I think Americans have I think there are a lot of good things about American culture, and one of them is the American dream. And I guess it's kind of a two-edged sword, in that by telling someone you could be anything you want to be, it has the negative effect of if you are not something special, that's really your fault because you could have been something, but you just didn't work hard enough. So, I mean, I think in that sense, it's kind of oppressive, but at the same time, it's also very optimistic, and it's it sings to the values that we have as Americans, that you can be anything, and you shouldn't let other people stop you. You shouldn't have to like conform to other things, and that you really do have the freedom to be yourself. And I think that's a very, very important American value, and I hope my kids will embrace that someday.
Hello, my name is Alicia Chang, and I was the Nichi Bay intern for the summer of 2023. Today I'm asking for your support for the Nichi Bay Internship Fund. As a Shin Nisei from the Bay Area, my connection to the Japanese American community has always been strong thanks to my family, and it has now been more enriched because of this internship experience. It was a privilege to receive the opportunity to meet the many JA community leaders like Kenji Taguma who work tirelessly behind the scenes. As a part of their marketing team this summer, I helped develop 3 websites, nichibay.org, their foundation website, and the online Japantown Community Resource Guide. It was an honor to be able to support the conversion of a legacy, print-based community resource guide into a modern digital resource. It includes hundreds of resource listings aimed at the Japanese American community in California and nationwide. I became immersed in print and digital news publishing for the duration, a great foundational experience that will serve me well as my career takes off. I encourage everyone to support this internship fund, which has allowed generations of JA community youth to learn about our history and what it means to be Japanese American.
Hello, Wes, the membership coordinator here again with the 3rd and final Nichi Bay Day of Giving raffle. This time we're going to select 8 lucky winners who will each win one of the following prizes: a striking and poignant poster commemorating the 10 World War II Japanese American internment camps. This poster is by Robert Matsumoto. The Art of Tofu, a recipe book of international vegetarian recipes by Akasha Richmond. From Cao to Cuisine, an island cookbook then and now by Arthur Mura with Derek Husa and Jason Takamura. Another book by Arthur Hura, Cao, Cuisine and Culture in the Hawaiian Islands. A CD of music called Go for Broke by Anthony Brown with the Japanese American Orchestra, the Japanese American Jazz Orchestra, and the San Jose Taiko Dojo. Finally, Masterclass, a membership, 1-year membership, online courses featuring celebrity teachers. And here we go, the Nichi Bay raffle shaker, 8 lucky winners. The first winner is William Sato of El Cerrito. Winner number 2, little shake. There we go. Carol Nelson of Sacramento. Winner number 3. Sterling Sakai of San Mateo. Winner number 4. Halfway there. Hugh Kawabata of Walnut Creek. Lucky winner number 5. The Fukui Mortuary of Los Angeles. Winner number 6. Gerald Nambu of Walnut Creek. 2 more to go. Left-handed. Here we go. Kumi Okamoto, San Francisco. Congratulations, Kumi. And the 8th and final winner of this year's Nichibei Day of Giving raffle is Julie Ma of Los Angeles. Congratulations to you all.
We now move to people who helped Nichibei be the organization it is today. We introduce 2 colleagues of mine on the Nichibei Foundation Board of Directors, Koji Lao Ozawa and Wendy Yamashita, who have common educational pursuits. And sorry about that. Now we hear from Craig Harmer from the Craig Foundation, which contributed a $50,000 matching donation to today's campaign.
Hi, I'm Craig Harmer, and I support the Nichibei Foundation through the Craig Foundation because I want to see Japanese culture and the Japanese American community preserved and expanded here in the Bay Area. I've been to Japan several times, and I know a number of Japanese and Japanese American people, and I've seen many admirable facets of Japanese culture in Japan and here in the Japanese American community. I think the Nichibei Foundation serves an important role in keeping the community connected and informed, and not only through the Nichibei Weekly and Nichibei Cafe videos, but also through the number of events they organize over the year. I think this work will help to preserve and grow the Japanese American community here today and for decades to come. That's why I support the Nichibei Foundation. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Koji Lao Ozawa, and I am a board member of the Nichibei Foundation. I grew up in San Francisco and the Daly City area. I'm a 5th generation San Franciscan on my mom's side, which was my mom's a member of the Italian and Irish American communities of San Francisco. And on my dad's side, Japanese American, Sansei, Sansei Point 5, as we like to say in my family. My grandfather was Issei and my grandmother was Nisei, both from the Pasadena area. And I've really valued what the Japanese American community in San Francisco, with the strong ties and community events, has fostered as a place of belonging for myself and for my family. I study Japanese American history and incarceration. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at UCLA. I've just finished my PhD at Stanford University, studying the archaeology of Japanese diaspora and the Gila River incarceration camp, where my grandparents were incarcerated during World War II in southern Arizona. And I look at the material remains, the history of both the incarceration camps, as well as historic Japan towns, And as I've done this research throughout my academic career, it's also brought me a real sense of what the value of community organizations like the Nichi are. I think that what drew me to this organization at first was some of the events they were bringing on, like the Films of Remembrance, which was directly related to a lot of my research and thinking, but really in participating through these kinds of events, getting to know the wider Japanese American community, as well as the work that organizations like Nichi do to create that sense of community, to help foster these spaces, these events, these publications that bring people together and keep them connected both to our history as well as to each other in the present. And I think that's one of the great values of the Nichi Foundation and all of the events, programs, and publications that it produces. I also actively participate in Kendo in San Francisco's Japantown, the traditional Japanese martial art of the way of the sword. And again, being involved in these kinds of organizations and activities help to keep the culture and the history of the spirit of the community alive, as well as to participate in events like the Cherry Blossom Festival and to be able to see the wider Japanese community represented through publications like the Nichi News and the Japanese Japantown Resource Guide. And so I really value the work that the Nichi Foundation does, and I hope that you too value it and can support the Nichi Foundation on this day of giving. Thank you so much.
Hi, I am Wendy Yamashita. I am a Yonsei, a fourth generation Japanese American from Oxnard, California. I am currently teaching at Sac State in the Ethnic Studies department, where I teach a bunch of Asian American Studies courses. I was trained at UC San Diego in History and Ethnic Studies, and then I went to UCLA for my MA in Asian American Studies and my PhD in Gender Studies. I've been involved with the Japanese American community for a while now with my own sort of research, which is on how do we remember Japanese American World War II incarceration. As a granddaughter of Japanese American incarcerees, this is really important to me. And so I also do work with the Manzanar Committee. I've been working with them for quite some time now. I work on their Manzanar at Desk program. So I work with Southern California Nikkei college students. And I also run a program through that called Katari, which is meant to educate these younger generations on Japanese American incarceration. I also work with the JCO Florin Sacramento chapter, and I help put on the yearly sort of annual event of NCTOR. And I came to the Nichi as a foundation board member this past year. And the Nichi is really, really important to me. I'm new to Northern California, and so it's been a way for me personally to establish community, and that's what the Nichi Foundation does so well, right? It connects everyone to community through the newspaper, through all of its events that it puts on, the Soy and Tofu Festival, the Films of Remembrance, which is one of my favorite events that we put on. I got to be a moderator this year at the San Francisco and San Jose showings, and it really was such an honor to talk to the filmmakers who are still continuing to produce documentaries and short narratives and longer narratives on Japanese American World War II incarceration. So I encourage you to donate to the Nichi Foundation so that we can continue to run these really, really important programs that bring the Japanese and Japanese American communities together and connect us to one another. Thank you.
Both Wendy and Koji, representing the next generation of Japanese American studies, will help us greatly in the years to come. Next, we take a look at Nichi legacies. This will include the pilgrimage this year to Wakamatsu and Nichi Legacy Society Planned Giving Program. But first, we hear from Friends of Hibakusha, Gary Honda.
Greetings, my name is Jerry Honda, a member of the Friends of Hibakusha, a support organization for atomic bomb survivors residing here in the United States. I wanted to acknowledge the importance of newspapers such as the Nichi News to keeping our community connected and informed, and hopefully to empower its readers to move towards positive action. One example is a sharing of stories about Hibakusha, atomic bomb survivors, as well as the virtual Remembrance for Peace commemorations, which were launched in 2020 during the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, co-sponsored by the Nichi Foundation, the Friends of Hibakusha, and members of the Japanese American Religious Federation of San Francisco. Although we've held these remembrance of the atomic bombings during these past 3 years, this year we moved to a program with an in-person event and an online presence. We hope with your support through the Nichi Day of Giving to continue to share the urgent message and pleas by all Hibakusha and their descendants for a peaceful and nuclear-free world. Thank you.
On October 7, 2017, the Nichi Foundation launched its first pilgrimage to the historic Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Farm Colony in Placerville, California, the site of the first large settlement of Japanese in America. This pilgrimage was organized in just 8 weeks in partnership with the American River Conservancy and the California Genealogical Society. The Nichi Foundation organized 3 buses from the Bay Area, including San Jose's Japantown, San Francisco's Japantown, and Emeryville, in collaboration with a bus from Sacramento organized by the Riverside Tanoshimi Kai. Once there, a program featured tours of the Granner House Museum, which included the story of the Japanese colonists. Professor Kristen Sasaki spoke on the Japanese immigrant experience in America, and Placer Umed Taiko performed for the gathering. Volunteers from the California Genealogical Society helped attendees to discover their family histories through family history consultations. Reverend Ronald Kubata of the Buddhist Church of San Francisco gave blessings at the gravesite of O.K. Ito. In 2019, the year commemorating the 150th anniversary of the colony, the Nichi Foundation organized 4 buses from throughout Northern California in the second pilgrimage to the site on October 5th, 2019. Thanks to a grant from the J.A. Community Foundation. Buses were launched from the San Jose Buddhist Church Betsuin in San Jose's Japantown, the Peace Plaza in San Francisco's Japantown, J-Say in the East Bay, and the Hendikyo High Sacramento Church in Sacramento. Once again, volunteers from the California Genealogical Society helped to get pilgrims started on researching their family histories. Reverend Joanne Tolosa of the Conco Church of San Francisco led a blessing at the OK gravesite. By 2019, the site included 2 new monuments, one erected for the 150th anniversary of the site that June by a group visiting from Aizu Wakamatsu, Japan, and the other dedicated to colonists, Matsunotsuki Sakurai. The event included a lecture titled OK-san of the Symbolic Importance of Wakamatsu Farm by Professor Daniel A. Metro, adjunct professor of Asian Studies at Mary Baldwin University in Virginia. Metro is the author of the new book, The Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Colony Farm and the Creation of Japanese America. Performances by Bakuhatsu Taiko Dan of UC Davis and Nishi Mei rounded out the program. The event also honored the Gibson family, the descendants of Wakamatsu colonists Kunino Tsuke, Masumizu, who married Carrie Wilson, daughter of a Blackfoot Indian woman and her freed slave father. The family was represented by descendant Penny Gibson. Masumizu remains the only Wakamatsu colonist who has known descendants in America. In total, the Nichi Bay Foundation led some 300 people in 2 4-bus pilgrimages to the Wakamatsu Tea and Silk Farm Colony to discover the little-known history of the site. Established on June 8, 1869 as the first Japanese colony in America, the site was also the birthplace of the first Japanese American and the gravesite of the first Japanese woman buried in the United States, O.K. Ito. It also led to the first Japanese to marry an African American woman in the United States. The ill-fated colony lasted for less than 2 years, but was a metaphor for the Issei immigrants who followed in much larger numbers in the late 1880s, who shared similar dreams of adventure and riches.
In the late 1800s, Kyutaro Abiko left his native Niigata, Japan, with little in his pocket, but with big dreams for a land far across the Pacific Ocean. Little did he know how he would impact generations to come. He not only established the most influential pre-war Japanese-American newspaper, the Nichibei Shimbun, in 1899, but Abiko and his wife Yona would become unparalleled community leaders. Kyutaro Abiko established a labor contracting company that brought workers from Japan, 3 farming colonies in the Central Valley of California, a bank, and community directories that would someday help historians piece together maps of Japantowns long after the neighborhoods were gone. Kyutaro Abiko is known by many as the most influential Japanese immigrant to America. He encouraged Issei pioneers to give up on their sojourner dreams of going back to Japan and instead set roots in the United States, their adopted country. The Nichibei newspapers not only kept the rapidly growing and geographically dispersed population connected and informed, but it documented its highs and lows, including the impending World War II wartime exclusion. Yona Abiko, the younger sister of Tsuda College founder Umeko Tsuda, was a pioneer in her own right. Together with her husband, she developed a program to send young Nisei to Japan to learn about their cultural heritage. Yona became publisher of the Nichibei Shimbun after the death of her husband in 1936. Yona Abiko also was the chief fundraiser for the San Francisco Japanese YWCA. Decades later, her diary served as key evidence in the legal battle to keep the property in community hands. Today, it is the home of Nihon Machi Little Friends, a multicultural childcare agency. The Abiko family left a strong foundation for future generations, which continued with their son, Yasuo, who helped to restart the Nichibei Times after World War II with his wife Lily.
And when we started in 46, they said, "How long do you expect to last?" And we said, "Well, we'll continue as long as there's people want to read the paper."
I see. Was that because there's a integration? Because
well, they said, "How many people are you going to serve?" They say we're getting old and be less help readers, but I guess those readers we lost, we've made up with people coming from Japan since then. So I imagine we're going to be here for some time, except all of us are getting old. I don't know how long we're going to hold out.
The Nichibei Foundation is the proud beneficiary of this legacy as we continue to keep the Japanese American community connected, informed, and empowered now and for future generations. How can your legacy become a part of ours? To help ensure long-term sustainability of our community-serving institution, we are proud to announce the Nichibei Legacy Society. Through a legacy gift to the Nichibei Foundation You can help ensure that succeeding generations of Japanese Americans will remain connected and informed. The Nichi Foundation is one of the oldest legacy organizations in the Japanese American community, yet it is also the youngest nonprofit organization as well. Because we rose from the ashes of the historic Nichi Times in 2009, we missed a lot of support from the Nisei generation. As we strive to preserve our culture and community while documenting our history for future generations, we hope that your legacy will become a part of ours.
Last year, we were very excited to announce the rebranding of Nichibei Weekly to Nichibei News. Next, we are happy to introduce some new things at Nichibei. We feel we take a swing at some innovative new things to keep our community connected. We're giving you a sneak peek at our new websites, which follow on the tail of our new rebranding, as well as a new Japanese section. And the Nichibei Foundation is launching our very first book by historian Art Hansen, who is interviewed by award-winning mystery author Naomi Hirahara about this upcoming book, A Nikkei Harvest.
Over the course of a year, the Nichibei Foundation underwent a brand audit with the marketing firm of Osaki Creative. That process led to new logos last year, as well as a new name of our nonprofit community news publication. After 13 years as a Nichibei Weekly, this year we rebranded as the Nichibei News in January. Part of that rebranding exercise suggested that we elevate the functionality of the Nichibei Foundation from behind the nichibei.org site and into its own website to be housed at a separate URL like nichibeifoundation.org. This will give increased visibility to the events and donor functionality of the Nichibei Foundation. The new Nichibei Foundation site also gives visibility to individual programs and events, gives donors an easy way to contribute to support the Nichibei Foundation, provides visibility of our board of directors, gives visibility to our staff. Overall, the Nichibei Foundation site will help to promote the many educational programs and events of the Nichibei Foundation without being buried within the news site. At the same time, the Nichibei Foundation is undertaking the first rebuild of our news site at nichibei.org. Originally funded by the Renaissance Journalism in 2010 as our very first grant project, nichibei.org has been instrumental in the reformation of the Nichibei Foundation as a nonprofit news source, and for spreading the word about our community news and features, as well as the Nichibei Foundation. Thanks to funding from the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation, we're undertaking a major rebuild of the community news site, while adding a section on our Nichibei Cafe monthly live stream program and a major community resource. We will also incorporate a calendar section, which may allow for user-generated content. That means community-based organizations may be able to submit calendar items through the site. We feel this will help empower organizations by helping to promote their events. The Nichibei Cafe, a division of the Nichibei News, will have its own section where visitors can access past episodes as well as individual segments. But the major new feature will be an online version of Nikkei Connections, our Japanese American Community Resource Guide. Perhaps our most ambitious and most popular publication to date, the Community Resource Guide is your guide to Japanese America, featuring a guide to hundreds of nonprofit organizations across the country, Japantown maps and directories, historic destinations relevant to the Japanese American experience, a map of wartime incarceration sites, public Japanese gardens, a guide to hundreds of cultural arts classes, cultural festivals and film festivals, cultural and community centers, Japanese schools and summer cultural programs, community and senior centers, Japanese grocery markets, churches, and religious organizations. The Community Resource Guide was funded by a grant from the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation. These sites will go live soon in the coming weeks, furthering our mission to keep the Japanese American community connected, informed, and empowered. But there's one more thing. Also thanks to the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation, as well as the state of California, we will be developing a Films of Remembrance on-demand archive. This would make many of the 95 films screened over 12 years of Films of Remembrance accessible around the world. We're still in the development phase of this site, but we feel this will be a huge resource for the general public as well as students and educators, while helping to empower filmmakers who document our histories through documentaries, narratives, and animations. Thanks again to the Henry and Tomoe Takahashi Charitable Foundation and the California State Library for making these projects available. We're proud to partner with you to provide news and educational resources to the community and public at large.
We are a non-profit educational foundation, and we have this Japanese section. We got funding for just 1 year. So your support to keep this Japanese section beyond a year, after a year, is very, very important. So please take this opportunity to support us, or you can subscribe our newspaper. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy our newspaper.
Hello, this is Naomi Hirahara, writer, mystery novel, journalist, and I'm so delighted to be talking with Professor Arthur Hansen, or Art. And many of us know him for his groundbreaking work as an oral historian when he was at Cal State Fullerton. And the work still continues, but we'll be talking today specifically about his upcoming collection of newspaper reviews on books, and it's called Nikkei Harvest. So Art, welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for being here to interview me, Naomi. Appreciate it.
Can you tell us a little bit about these book reviews that you did for the Nichibei, how it came about, and what sort of books have you been reviewing, and about how many?
Well, in 2013, Wayne Maeda, who was the lead book reviewer for the Nichibei newspaper, it passed away. And so Kenji Taguma, the president of the Nichibei Foundation and the editor of the Nichibei newspaper, and I'll use the name Nichibei newspaper because it's had two names, Nichibei, Weekly, and then Nichibei News. And he asked me, would I be willing to take over the role that had been performed in the past by Wayne? So I was delighted to do it because I always enjoyed reading Wayne's reviews, and I found them to be very riveting and really a good model for me to try to be able to. I knew I could never emulate it to the fullest, but to try to be able to write reviews that were up to that standard. So since that time, I've probably written over 50 book reviews, and these reviews were in the 2 issues of the Nichibei a year, one in January and the other one in July, in which they have a special book review section. And so I would read anywhere from 2 to 4 books and provide reviews for those. And typically the way I got the reviews was that Kenji would pass along those books that were available to be reviewed and asked if I had a special interest in them. All of the books have something to do with Japanese American history of one sort or another. And so I sorted things out, and sometimes I chose books because the subject was particularly interesting to me, or I was particularly well versed in, or sometimes it was because I wanted to be well versed in it, that it was a chance for me to expand my interest. It proposed a challenge, which is a nice thing for a reviewer.
Over the 10 years, have you noticed like new trends in terms of the publication of books on Japanese American history?
I think that increasingly, because of the saturation of the topic of Japanese American history, that the later books right now are moving in different kinds of directions that hadn't been approached before. For example, the last 3 books I reviewed, one of them had to do with the Kibe Nisei experience during World War II, not only within the United States, but the Kibe Nisei who were trapped in Japan, or even the Kibe Nisei who had to go fight for the Japanese army. And then there was another book that I reviewed that had to do with the use of Japanese American labor during World War II, and how that was part of the government's plan, was to use Japanese American labor, free labor basically, to get certain kinds of projects done that different people or different groups needed to have done. And then the third one was a book that dealt with the lawyers in the camps, the project attorneys, and nothing had really been written about those project attorneys, and yet they played a very important role. So there were 3 books that I was so excited to be able to read and to be able to write my review on it.
What do you think? I guess this will be my final question to you. What do you think is the value of literary criticism? What role do you have as a critic of these books? And what do you hope will happen as you write about these various pieces of
Well, I'd like to compare my experience as an academic reviewer for academic books, and then my reviews that I'm doing for the newspaper, because I think they're different audiences and a different set of concerns for me, different mandates for me. When I reviewed books as a professor at Cal State Fullerton, a lot of the reviews I did were on books that dealt with my specialty, which is Japanese American history. But what they wanted basically was for me to deal with the theoretical breakthroughs in the books, the methodological breakthroughs in the books, and then they really wanted me to be critical in the sense of finding where the book fell short relative to other books that have been addressed to a similar topic. And I didn't really want to do those kinds of reviews anymore. I was kind of tired of those. I felt that I was being asked to do, and another thing they didn't want you to do as a reviewer is to intrude yourself into any of the reviews. And so I was really delighted to do the book reviews for the Nichi, for a newspaper audience. And there have been other people, like Greg Robinson increasingly has moved away from academic writing to journalistic writing. And so I like that idea. And so when I started to do it, I decided, no, what I'm going to do is not really deal so much with theory and method, and I'm not going to be really so critical. I'm really going to try to find out what the advantages were that the author of the book provided for readers when they wrote that book. And instead of finding fault and juxtaposing them to people that were better or different so much, I tended to concentrate on their achievement. Now, I mentioned things that deal with theory and method and the like, but I also infused a lot of myself into it, because I've been spending 50 years working on aspects of Japanese American history. And I've run across a lot of different people in a lot of different situations, and they are enlightening things for me to use. It wasn't a self-display. It was my self-knowledge that I could share as a result of having had that experience of knowing these people and talking to them and going to these different events and the like. So that was really basically the difference. And I've really thoroughly enjoyed my writing for it. I look forward to them. And I proceed usually the same way when I write a book review, The first thing I want to do is to write the first paragraph of the review. The first paragraph of the review for me is the protein part of it, in the sense that that's where I lay the groundwork for what's going to come. Then I let it germinate for a while in my head, and then the review seems to write itself after that. But I first really spend a lot of time at getting the sort of the thesis statement for my review in that first paragraph.
So Art, I know that Nikkei Harvest also includes reviews by Mr. Maeda, but can you give us kind of an overview of the content of the book, as well as how these reviews were organized?
Okay. Yes, the book is dedicated to Wayne Maeda, and also to Martha Nakagawa, who recently passed away. A very, very successful journalist, and particularly within the Japanese American vernacular newspapers. And Wayne is the authorship of this book is by me with Wayne Maeda, and the prologue of the book is the last reviews that Wayne wrote for the Nichibei, and that was when it was the Nichibei Weekly. And so those give you a sense of what Wayne provided as a model for reviewing for the Nichibei. And and then Kenji Taguma in his foreword talks a lot about Wayne Maeda and his background and everything, and how important he was not only to the Nichibei but also to Kenji as well, when he was a student, and later on when they were colleagues. So now the organization of the book, most people think, well, it's just a bunch of reviews. Well, it's not. I've organized the book topically, and I've written headnote essays for each section of the book. So let me just indicate what the sections of the book are. Okay. I've divided it into 9 categories. One of them focuses on people, particularly, the individuals. The next group of reviews deal with the Japanese American family. The next group of reviews deals with the Japanese American community, the history of the community and the history of the family, etc. The next section of the book deals with Japanese American arts of all sorts. The next section deals with the World War II Japanese American incarceration camps. The next section deals with the World War II Japanese American resistance activity. The next section deals with the Asian American movement. The next section deals with the Japanese American redress movement. And the final chapter deals with the international Nikkei community. So you get a very full picture of the entire Japanese American experience through these different sections. And I think each of the essays are quite important in and of themselves. They're not just adjuncts to the reviews. They really have a standalone value.
Well, I think all of Japanese America is very grateful for these reviews, because I think it shines a light to maybe books that a lot of people don't know about. So I'm sure everybody is very excited for the release of this collection of reviews called Nikkei Harvest. I'm part of the team that's working with Nichibei to release them. So we hope to get it out by the end of the year. So thank you so much, Art, for sharing these few minutes and talking about your process and doing the reviews and the reviews themselves. So thank you.
Well, you're very welcome, and thank you, Naomi, for taking all the time from your very busy sort of career as just a multiplex writer to be able to help me promote this book and to participate in events like the one that we've just had. Thank you very, very much.
Thanks again for joining us today for our 7th annual Nichibei Day of Giving. Thus far, we have raised over $120,000, but please keep those donations coming in. Thanks again for your support of the Nichibei Foundation. As we enter our last hour of today's program, we invite you to support any of our wonderful funds and participants at www.nichibei.org/give-to-nichibei. We know that there are some who have initiated their donor-advised funds to make contributions to our Day of Giving efforts. So we will leave the donation portals open through September 31st, 2023, so the end of this month. Your support means so much to us as we continue to serve the Japanese American community in many ways.
And thank you, Yuki, for being our MC today. Special thank you to Craig Harmer and the Craig Foundation for contributing $50,000 to today's goal, and the Kinjiro and Eiko Moriguchi Fund for donating $25,000. Also, special shout out to a couple of people, Jerry and Gail Nambu for donating $5,000, and Lorna Fong of Sacramento for contributing $5,000 in memory of her late mother, the late Mary Kawano Fong. Thank you for all that you have done to support our foundation, and thank you to everybody who donated today as well as throughout the month. Thank you for reaching into your pockets to contribute to our community serving mission. We can't thank you enough. Once again, thank you, everybody, for supporting the Nichibei Foundation.
ありがとうございます。
I'm Lori Shigakuni. On behalf of my other board members, I want to thank you for your generous support for the Nichibei. It is so important to stay connected with each other. It is so important to support the work that the Nichibei does. Thank you very much.